The winter wind howled across the empty road like a warning. It was the kind of bone-cutting cold that made even wild animals retreat into silence. On the outskirts of Bridgeport, Connecticut, in the early hours of February 9, 2010, a flicker broke through the shadows, an unnatural blaze erupting on a desolate stretch of Black Rock Turnpike. It wasn't a house, not a barn, just a fire burning hot and low at the base of a snow-slicked embankment. At 3:27 a.m., a local utility worker spotted the flames as he drove by in a service truck. He slowed, puzzled. Car, perhaps. An accident. But when he stepped closer, the sickly stench hit him first. Burned flesh, melting fabric, something wrong. He stumbled back and immediately called 911. When firefighters arrived minutes later, the inferno had shrunk into coals and crackling bones. What remained was grotesque. A human body mutilated beyond recognition, the arms bent unnaturally, the legs scorched into charcoal stumps. The face had been deliberately removed. No teeth visible, nose gone, no eyes. Someone didn't want this woman to be identified. But they'd made a mistake. The killer had overlooked one detail. A partial dental filling survived the heat. By sunrise, police had sealed off the scene and brought in a state forensic team. Who was she? Why here, 40 miles from anywhere familiar? There was no purse, no wallet, no phone, and no car nearby. Nothing but a burned corpse on an icy roadside. Back in Long Island, Rebecca Koster's parents were already awake, sipping coffee, waiting for a text that wouldn't come. It was just after midnight on a bitter January night in 2010, when a faint orange glow pierced through the darkness along a deserted road in Milford, Connecticut. The flame flickered, growing stronger as minutes passed. By the time a passing motorist noticed the blaze and called 911, it had already consumed much of what it had set out to erase. Firefighters arrived quickly, but the sight that awaited them was one even seasoned responders would never forget. A burning pile, more than just brush or trash. When the flames were finally extinguished, the smoldering remains revealed something horrifying. A mutilated human body, left charred and lifeless on the icy roadside. Everything about the body seemed intentionally destroyed. No clothing, no jewelry, no personal items. The fingertips had been severed. The face was nearly gone. It was clear someone wanted this woman to disappear, to vanish without a trace. But they'd missed something. Back at the medical examiner's office, a forensic dentist discovered one intact detail. Her dental work. It was meticulous, expensive, and distinct. A quick search through missing persons reports, and then a comparison with dental records, led to a shocking match. The victim was Rebecca Koster, a 24-year-old woman from Long Island, New York. How had she ended up more than 60 miles away from home, tortured, mutilated, and burned? That question would consume not just her grieving parents, but also a team of determined investigators. Rebecca had vanished just days before. She hadn't answered texts or calls. At first, her parents thought maybe she just needed a break, some space. But now, they were plunged into a nightmare no family ever prepares for. Pat and Linda Koster, devastated but desperate for answers, described their daughter as vibrant, loyal, and deeply sensitive. Rebecca had recently taken time off from school. She was figuring things out, working odd jobs, and trying to reset her life after a bad breakup. She had such a kind heart, her mother would later say. Too kind sometimes. The last time anyone had seen Rebecca alive was 3 nights earlier. She'd told a friend she was going to hang out with someone new she'd met online. Just a casual meetup, she'd said. Nothing serious. Now, detectives knew they had to trace that meeting, and fast. They checked her phone records and online activity. There, hidden behind a user alias, was a disturbing revelation. Rebecca had been chatting for weeks with a man named David McDonough, a 30-year-old from the Bronx. His messages started off flirty but quickly grew possessive. Investigators read through the chat logs, each message darker than the last. You're not like the other girls. You get me. You're mine now. Don't ever ghost me or you'll regret it. Rebecca had tried to break it off once, but David had found her number again. He kept texting. Then, on the night of her disappearance, her phone pinged off a tower near his Bronx apartment, and then went silent forever. Detectives obtained security footage from the apartment building. They spotted Rebecca entering the building late that night with David, but she was never seen leaving. When confronted, David claimed Rebecca had left after a few hours. They just hung out, he insisted. Watched TV. Smoked a little. Then she just left. But detectives weren't buying it. His story didn't add up. For one, his phone had pinged not just in the Bronx that night, but later in Connecticut, near the spot where Rebecca's body was found. And surveillance cameras along I-95 had captured a vehicle matching David's car traveling north at 2 a.m. Still, there was no physical evidence. No weapon, no confession. That's when a break came. David's neighbor remembered something odd. The smell of bleach in the hallway that night. Then, a janitor told police he'd seen David carrying several heavy trash bags to a nearby dumpster. Detectives rushed to the landfill where the trash had been sent. For 3 days, they combed through piles of garbage. Then they found it. A bag containing charred pieces of women's clothing, hair, and blood-stained towels. DNA confirmed it. The blood was Rebecca's. Detectives now had enough evidence to arrest David McDonough for the murder of Rebecca Koster. The DNA match from the landfill was the final link, the proof that tied him directly to her death. They showed up at his Bronx apartment early one morning with a warrant. David, bleary-eyed and visibly nervous, opened the door and immediately muttered, "I didn't mean to hurt her." Those words were damning. He was placed in cuffs on the spot. In the interrogation room, David unraveled quickly. The confident, controlling man who had once manipulated Rebecca through online messages was now reduced to a stammering wreck. After hours of questioning, he began to tell a story. His version. He said Rebecca had come over that night willingly. They had drinks, watched movies, and things got heated. According to David, they argued. He claimed she tried to leave, and he lost control. One push, one moment of anger. She fell, hit her head. He insisted it was an accident. But the evidence, and Rebecca's body, told a much darker story. The autopsy revealed not just blunt force trauma, but signs of prolonged assault. Multiple fractures. Defensive wounds. A shattered jaw. The mutilation after death had been extensive and deliberate. A failed attempt to delay identification. Investigators believed the killing was not an impulsive act of rage, but a premeditated effort to silence someone David felt entitled to own. And the trip to Connecticut. That was no panic disposal. It was planned. David had searched online days earlier for remote roads in Connecticut, and how to destroy a body with fire. Detectives confronted him with the evidence. His face went pale. He didn't speak another word. The case went to trial the following year. Rebecca's family sat through every excruciating day. The defense tried to argue that David suffered from untreated mental illness, that he had snapped during a moment of rejection. But prosecutors dismantled that theory piece by piece, laying out the timeline, the obsessive messages, the planning, and the brutal end. When the jury returned the verdict, guilty of first-degree murder, the courtroom was silent for a long, breathless moment. Then, a soft gasp from Linda Koster broke through. She clutched a necklace with Rebecca's initials, her fingers trembling. David McDonough was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Still, justice came with a hollow echo. Rebecca was gone. Her laughter, her kindness, her dreams, all stolen in one night of unspeakable violence. In the years that followed, Rebecca's parents turned their grief into advocacy. They launched Rebecca's Light, an initiative aimed at educating young people about online safety, digital manipulation, and coercive control. Her story was shared in schools and across media, not just as a cautionary tale, but as a cry for awareness and for change. "We didn't just lose our daughter," her father said during one memorial speech. "We lost her future. We lost the life she should have lived." Today, along that desolate road in Connecticut, a small white cross stands in the brush. It bears Rebecca's name and a quote from her favorite book. "She had a wild, kind heart, and a soul too bright to be hidden." And in the quiet of the wind that blows over the hill, it's easy to believe that somewhere, somehow, Rebecca still shines.